All right. Well, I do want to welcome you to this edition of the Dig In Food Gardening series. So today we are going to be talking about permaculture, which goes along with then perennial crops for food and then some small fruit. So we do have a lot to go over today. And again, I do thank you for coming out in person, for those of you with us in the meeting room and then joining us online. If y'all have any questions as we go along, feel free to unmute yourself or enter them in the chat. All right. So we are with University of Maryland Extension. So this is a flow chart that we start each presentation with to make sure that everyone understands our connection with University of Maryland and the College Park, College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And because the College of Ag does receive federal funding with United States Department of Agriculture, we want to be sure that we are offering our programs equally and accessibly to all. So this is our Injustice for All poster, and if anybody has questions about that, there's all kinds of information about how you can get more information about Injustice for All at the bottom of the poster. So my name is Ashley, and I'm excited to be with you today. I am the home horticulture agent here in Garrett County and the Master Gardener Coordinator, and my counterpart, Miss Sarah Llewellyn in Allegheny County, has helped support these programs. So I want to make sure that she has her contact information here. If any of you have questions, feel free to reach out to either one of us. So to start things off, today is all about perennials. So just to start that off, I want to go over a quick review of what annuals, perennials, and then biennials really do mean. So the first one is annuals. So with this type of growth cycle, we are going to start with the seed. We're going to have vegetative growth. We're going to flower. It's going to produce a seed, and then it's going to die naturally. That's just a 1-year growth cycle. So within the annual category, we can have either summer annuals, which is traditionally what we think of as, a lot of our spring blooming flowers and a lot of our plants, warm season crops. But we can also have something called winter annuals. And a lot of those are going to be the weeds that we see, especially anything that is already blooming now in our landscape. A lot of those things like chickweed, purple dead nettle, henbit, a lot of those, some are going to be what we call winter annuals. So they sprouted last summer. They overwintered as vegetative state. They woke back up when it started to get warm a few weeks ago. They are now flowering and producing seeds. So they're going to finish their life cycle really soon. So again, annual, summer, or winter. And then we can go over here to the right where we have biennial. So with the biennial, that means that this plant is going to live for 2 years. So the first year it sprouts from a seed and has vegetative growth. It's then going to go dormant. Second year, after it goes through the cooling period, it will have vegetative growth again. It will then flower, produce a seed, and die. So again, this is important when we talk about some of our things like raspberries. They actually have biennial canes, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Some of our other weeds that we see, things like Queen Anne's lace, that is a biennial. So the first year you will not see the Queen Anne's lace flower. That's only the second year. And then the very last one is the perennial. So these are going to be plants that are long-lived. They're going to start with a seed, or maybe you're going to vegetatively propagate them. They'll go into this continual cycle of vegetative growth, flowering, and then dormancy until eventually they will have some sort of issue. Maybe a critter will eat them. Maybe they'll just outlive their life cycle, and then eventually they will die. But hopefully that's several years in advance. So just a quick review of those different growth cycles as we get into this. I also wanted to, of course, hit on the importance of knowing your USDA cold hardiness zone. Again, with a lot of the different patterns we're seeing with our climate change, it could be that you are getting a little bit warmer. I do still recommend that you stick to getting plants that are at least a zone colder if possible, just to be sure that you're not going to be investing in something and then we have a surprise cold snap and then lose it. So again, this is the older version. I think it was 2012 that this edition of the plant hardiness zone map was put out. Again, just 2 years ago, they have a new updated version. So just be sure that you are visiting the website and put it in your zip code to get all the right information. So I'm really excited today to talk to you a little bit about this word permaculture. So this is kind of something that is new. It's been getting a lot of social media attention in the last few years. We've seen it, really kind of take off, and people get really excited about it, especially with the move towards a lot of people trying to become more self-sufficient. And permaculture fits in greatly with that movement. So what is permaculture? It's really described as an effort to create efficient and productive landscapes that sustain themselves into the future by generating biodiversity and helping to recreate fertility in the soil. So that's a mouthful, but basically it's how we can create a system that's more well balanced. So instead of just having nothing but green grass that requires a lot of resources, as far as fertilizer, as far as fossil fuels to mow, as far as managing it, potentially pesticides to keep it, keep the bugs out of it. How can we create a system in our small landscapes and homes and gardens that's going to be really beneficial for every part involved? So these next few slides that are in orange outline, they do come from Oregon State University, so I do want to be sure that I'm giving them the proper credit for that. So I love this quote. So it's really about changing the way that we're thinking about our gardens. So it's not that you don't have a snail problem or a slug problem. It's that you have a duck deficiency, right? So we're going to think about what natural predator we can potentially introduce into our landscape to hopefully fix some of the problems. So again, this is kind of where we're going with this talk. So a lot of times the problem is actually going to be the solution. So the design principles that are going to help to guide a lot of these permaculture systems is that we want to make a lot of connections, right? So we want to connect the different systems instead of just having, again, like I used the first example, just one green lawn that's not really providing a lot of diversity to either insects or further up the food chain. We want to be able to connect these different areas and see what they can give each other. So one of the main principles, again, is catching and storing energy and materials. So maybe that's water from your downspouts to create things like a rain barrel that you can then use in your vegetable garden. Maybe that's creating overflow from rainwater and stormwater runoff to create a rain garden that can then help to, provide different habitat for some of our different native plants and that sort of thing. Stacking functions. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but how we can have multiple plants or multiple things within the landscape providing multiple functions. So maybe that's shade for a swing for the children. Maybe that's shade, a shade structure so that you can plant more cool season vegetables throughout the whole growing season. Another big concept is making the least change for the greatest effect. So how can we have the least negative effect in our landscape, but still get the outcome that we're trying to get? And then small scale intensive systems. So again, we've kind of learned a little bit about that as we went through some of these other topics in this Dig In series, but how we can use things like raised beds or containers to really focus our energy on food gardening principles. And then this is another really exciting type of system that people are really talking a lot about, especially in settings like school gardens, where we know that kids need to learn more about green spaces and more about producing food. But a lot of our traditional warm season vegetables are going to be ripe in the summer months when students aren't in school. So adding things like food forests, where we can add multiple layers of interest and multiple layers of habitat can be really helpful in like a school garden system. It also helps to create microclimates and increase our biodiversity. So of course, this is not necessarily a food forest for our area. It has things like papaya trees and orange trees. This would be more of an example for further south in a much warmer climate, but you can kind of get the idea where we're having a vertical layer of vines, and then we're going to have things like strawberries. They're calling this the rhizosphere, but a little bit higher would be sweet potatoes, then basil, and then shrub berries, and then smaller trees, and then taller trees. So that's an idea of a food forest. And again, the aim is really that we can grow as much food as possible. So not just focusing on one single system or one single season, but it's how we can connect all those different systems together. So provide food and habitat for beneficial insects, for beneficial critters. So maybe that's birds, maybe that's bees, maybe that's a little bit higher in the food chain, putting the waste back into the system. So again, recycling those nutrients. If we have critters like livestock, so maybe chickens, how can we use that waste safely back into our food system to then get those nutrients back into the ground so that they're going to be very productive and high fertility soils. Go with the flow. The problem again is the solution. So again, figuring out what we already have available to really combat some of these issues. And I really like this one. And again, the photo looks a little blurry here, but hedgerows and living fences, again, how can we really use living plants to kind of accomplish some of these issues that we may have in our landscape? And then this is another terminology that you will probably hear a lot if you start to look into the permaculture guidance and resources. And this is guilds. So it's how you group certain plants together because of their ability to grow together. So maybe they attract beneficial insects. Maybe they deter wildlife. Maybe it works as a mulch. So again, just using all the different benefits of each plant to really get the most benefit from your entire growing season. So with that, that's just a really quick introduction and basic outline to the principles behind permaculture. So then I wanted to jump into some of the really beneficial perennial crops that you might want to consider adding to your landscape to either start to build your permaculture or maybe just add in general. So asparagus is the first one. So this is a long-lived perennial. It is usually sold by dormant crowns that you can purchase at lots of different, seed catalog sources or even at your local big box store. I found some different crowns available just like at Walmart, and they're pretty affordable to get started. The important thing to notice about asparagus is that it's very cool season. So this last few weeks of hot weather is really starting to get it to sprout up. So the first year that you plant it, you won't be able to harvest the sprouts that you want to consume. You're going to have to let those root crowns get built up some time before you can actually start to harvest. But it's very hardy, so zones 2 to 8. It does require some cold, so we do have an ideal location. In the fall of the year, it's ideal to cut it down after it's had a chance to sprout. Once it goes into the fern stage, so you're not going to want to harvest every single sprout of asparagus, at least for the first, 5 to 10 years of your patch until it gets really, really well established. But in the fall of the year, cut everything back to 2-inch stubs after the killing frost, and then add 4 to 6 inches of mulch. And then rhubarb is another really popular vegetable that we seem to have a lot of here in Garrett County. Just remember that rhubarb is a long-lived perennial, and it does need pretty well-drained soil, but it does like fertile soil. So again, top dressing with composted manure after a killing frost is really helpful. Horseradish is another one that I just wanted to mention. So again, some people may feel like this isn't a true vegetable, more of a condiment that people either love or hate. But I've heard that the longer you wait, so once you dig the roots and you grind it up, you do want to be sure that you're doing that outside because it's very strong. And the longer you wait between grinding and putting the vinegar on, the more hot it's going to get. So if you don't want it very hot, you need to be sure that you're adding the vinegar pretty quickly to stop those chemical reactions. But again, perennial plant, it's in the mustard family, so it's really easy to grow. You do need to be careful that it won't continue to spread. So make sure that you're harvesting the majority of it each season so that it doesn't get too overrun in your landscape. And then garlic is another nice perennial that you might want to think about adding. So there are 2 varieties of garlic that you can plant. We have hardneck, excuse me, that has the scapes that are going to be the little sprouts that come up in the spring of the year that a lot of people can use, cut those green and use those as an additional food source. And then we have the soft neck variety. So a lot of times soft neck is a little bit better for long-term storage, but either variety will do just fine. And the goal for planting garlic is not actually in the spring. You want to actually plant it in the fall of the year. 2 weeks after a killing frost, the best guidance is that you are going to get it in the ground before Columbus Day. So Columbus Day is kind of like the last time, the latest that you can get it in. The goal is that you would put it in the ground. You can take cloves, individual cloves, and break them apart and put those into the soil. And you want them to be sprouting before it gets cold and the ground freezes, but you don't want it actually to come up out of the ground. So that's kind of why we say Columbus Day is the latest. You want to give it a little time to get in there and get established, but not actually be coming up out. And then there's a lot of opportunities for tree fruit and small fruit. So tree fruit tends to be a little bit harder to get established. It tends to require a lot more resources as far as pruning and as far as spray schedules and that sort of thing to get beautiful tree fruit that you're used to getting like in stores. So apples, peaches, pears, plums, cherries, and figs. But there is a big opportunity here for people to use more small fruits in their home landscape. So things like strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, grapes, currants, and the elderberry are what we're going to talk about today. So again, they're a great option because a lot of these are going to be producing fruit within the first year or two from planting. So it's not nearly as long of a commitment as 3 to maybe 10 years for certain different trees. So again, for those of us that are impatient with gardening and want to get more fruit coming off quickly, this is a great place to start. And it's important to remember that these fruits do have a chill requirement, so they need a certain number of hours when the temperature is between 32 and 45 degrees. Again, this is why some of these varieties don't do well too far south. So things like strawberries, they have a very low chill requirement, so therefore they can be grown really across a wide area in the United States. But things like raspberries, they're higher, 700 to 800. Peaches, again, 600 to 800. So again, it's just kind of interesting to know that they have to meet these chill requirements before they're going to break dormancy and start to sprout out. Again, the higher the chill requirement, that's kind of a tool that we use to keep them from budding out too early in colder areas. So again, picking cultivars, any seed catalog, any online source, you'll have hundreds of varieties. So again, just really be sure that you're following the cold hardiness zone recommendation for your area. Always get certified or registered plants. And remember that often your bare root plants are going to be a lot more affordable, and they will catch up with container plants pretty quickly as long as you keep them well watered that first year. So what to do if your plants arrive early? I kind of got this question a lot this spring. What if they come too early, or what if I purchased them from a box store and they were already starting to sprout out? So yeah, the guidance is that if they're starting to sprout out, you don't want to put them outside until the fear of frost is gone. So I got some grapes early on in the season and they're just hanging out in the house because I know that if I stick them outside, they're going to get, frosted back. All right, so I know this is a lot to go over. We are going to try to get through this a little bit quickly, but strawberries are a really easy way to add some fresh fruits to your landscape. So remember that there are two different varieties of strawberries. They're June bearing, which are short day plants, and then everbearing. So a couple years ago, some farmers here in Garrett County did a lot of research and trials with everbearing varieties, and they found that they did really well here. So the advantage to everbearing is that it doesn't matter what happens with the day length, they're going to go ahead and produce. So again, if you want a whole, if you don't want to have bigger production, you just want to have small amounts throughout the whole season, then everbearing is a good choice for you. And when we think about the plant itself, we need to think about the mother plant. So that's what you're going to purchase. If you purchase a strawberry plant, a lot of times they're just dormant roots. You're not going to have any leaves on them, and it can be a little disheartening when you get it because it just looks like a dead root. But never fear, from the crown, there will be new petioles and new leaves that sprout up out of there. And eventually, once this plant gets established, it will put out a daughter plant on this runner. So daughter plants are an exact copy of the mother plant, so it's a great way to get more plants in a hurry. Once this daughter plant starts to get roots, you want to cut it off and put it somewhere else. The other piece of information is that a lot of people don't realize that mother plants will eventually get too compact. So after 2 to 3 years, you want to go in and kind of take out the mother plant or prune it back or cut out part of the crown. That sounds, again, a little bit harsh, but again, that's going to open back up the canopy and encourage it to keep growing and producing fruit for you. We're going to skip through some of this. The next plant I want to talk to you about is raspberries. So raspberries are brambles or bramble fruits and aggregate fruits made up of drupelets. So each individual section here of a raspberry has to get pollinated. So sometimes we will see some issues where pollination isn't getting complete. So maybe you'll have misshapen fruit or fruit that doesn't have the same size of drupelets. So that's just something to think about. So we describe raspberries as they have a perennial crown. So the base of the plant will be there year after year, and every couple years they're going to put up different canes. So usually the canes are 2-year lives, so we call those biennial canes. But the root itself is going to be a perennial, so that gets a little confusing. Lots of different types, almost every color, red, purple, black, spring bearing, June bearing. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. They are shallow rooted, very aggressive once they get established. So be careful where you put them because they will keep spreading once they are in a happy place. They are actually self-pollinated flowers, so they are complete flowers. They don't need an insect to help, pollinate them, but they have the sweetest nectar. So therefore, we do tend to see a lot of bees, wasps, that sort of thing on the raspberry flowers. So things to think about whenever you are looking at purchasing different types of raspberries, you will see the words primocane or floricane. So this gets, again, a little bit confusing, but a lot of times they'll be sold as spring-bearing raspberries, which means that the primocanes arise from the basal root. So primocanes are the first year they come out of the ground first. And then the second year that cane is out is called a floricane. So for spring-bearing raspberries, they're not going to flower and give you fruit for 2 years. Then we have the fall bearing ones. So these produce fruit on the primocane. So again, these are going to give you berries a lot sooner. So the first year that you plant fall bearing or primocane bearing raspberries are going to be the easiest and quickest fruiting ones for people. So again, the other beautiful thing about primocane bearing raspberries is that you can cut them back to the ground each season. Deer can eat them back to the ground each season. It doesn't really matter for the overall health of the plant because every single year it's going to put up a cane that's going to bear fruit for you. So it makes your management a lot easier. So this is an example for those of you joining us today in person. This is Joan J. This is a primo cane variety that is thornless that I started growing a few years ago, and it's been amazing because it gives big berries. And again, it's thornless, which can be very helpful for having to pick it. The only disadvantage is that deer will nibble it to the ground, and there's no thorns or anything to really stop them. And then we have blackberries, again, which can be classified in the exact same way as the raspberries with primocane bearing or floricane bearing. You can also divide them into thorny erect, thornless trailing, or thornless erect. Again, if you can get the primocane varieties, that's going to save you a lot of headaches when it comes to management and pruning because they're going to put up a cane every single fall and they're going to give you berries. Okay, just some more information that you can reference later on. Blueberries also make a nice addition to your landscape. And they are also a native plant to Maryland, so therefore they can really give you a lot of wildlife benefits if you're looking to build habitat and ecosystems within your landscape. There are many, many different varieties of Lepidoptera, which are the moth and butterflies, that are going to feed on either blueberry foliage or the fruit itself, so it can be a great addition to your landscape. The important thing to remember with establishing blueberries is that they actually prefer a very low pH, unlike most other landscape shrubs and plants. So they like a pH, this is saying down to 4.8. So that's really quite low on the pH scale. 7 would be neutral, so this is very much on the acidic side. So there'll be lots of recommendations on how to get that down to the 4.8, but the only way to really know what your pH is to start with is going to be with a soil test. So I recommend that, especially if you're going to try to establish blueberries. And then we have grapes. So again, grapes are a nice addition. They are a long-lived perennial. Excuse me. The interesting thing about grapes is that again, they are perennials, but they're going to put out different canes each season. And so fruit will only be, they will only bear fruit clusters and flowers after the cane is 2 years old. So it's really important to know exactly how old that cane is, and whenever you're doing pruning and that sort of thing, because it'll only fruit on the 2nd-year-old wood. So again, whenever we think about setting up trellises and that sort of thing, it can be important to think about how you're going to trellis each different cane or each different branch that comes out of that the perennial crown each year, because you need to know, again, can I cut that off? Has it already bore fruit, bared fruit, or not? So think about that. It's also important to know, especially because they tend to bud out a little too early and we tend to get some freezes that will kill some of those primary buds. So knowing that, there's some secondary buds still on there, so knowing how to manage those can be helpful. They're difficult to transplant. So again, it's usually easier to take a brand new cutting, a vegetative cutting off of an old grape than actually try to dig up the roots of it. And then black rot, which is a fungal disease, is the #1 problem that we see with backyard grown grapes. So a lot of times you'll see these mummies, which are the dried up grapes, on the clusters, and that is where the fungal disease is going to overwinter till the following season. So a lot of times these mummies are going to fall down to the base of the grapes, and then the spring of the year, those sporulate and then spread through the rest of the canopy. This is what you'll see, the brown splotches on the grape leaves, and then you'll actually see the black spots on the grape itself. Okay, put in some suggested cultivars. Again, was a fact sheet that I found from Iowa, but it has some good guidance in there. And then pruning. We could talk about pruning on every one of these plants, but I'm just going to leave this slide up there for you to reference a little bit later. Make sure that you are pruning them in late winter or early spring. Once they start to bud out, it's too late to prune your grapes, so you can really have a big damage on them if you prune them too late in the season. And then I just wanted to touch on, I know we're running out of time here, but some of the less used small fruits, so things like currants, so the ribes species, and then elderberries. These are very nutritious plants, again, that provide a lot of wildlife benefits and a lot of human health benefits as well, because they're very high in antioxidants. Okay. So, again, currants can be a nice addition to your landscape, and they're very easy to get established. They will be perennials. And then gooseberries are also in the same genus as currants, and they're getting a lot of attention too, like on social media and on different health reasons that you might want to plant them. Very cold hardy. They kind of spread not too far, 3 to 6 feet. And then I found this interesting that the jostaberry, that is a cross between a gooseberry and a black currant. So you may see that listed in some magazines or something like that. General care, again, they're going to have pretty quick maturity, 3 to 4 years for full maturity. And they'll last, 15 to 20 years. My parents have a planting of currants, and it's probably closer to 30 years, and they just keep going and going. And they will do really well in part shade here in our area, which is kind of nice because a lot of other fruits need to have full sun. And then elderberries are another amazing native plant that you can add. There's 46 different species of songbirds that will feed on the elderberry, as well as being, a source to making juices and jams and jellies and that sort of thing. The flowers are also edible on an elderberry, so a lot of people can pick those off and like dip them in a flour butter mixture and then fry those, so that can kind of be fun. And then again, they were once so common that people considered them a ditchweed. And they do spread by rhizomes, by layering and suckering. They're also very easy to propagate from seed. Again, just some more information about elderberries. Again, they can really help to fulfill a niche area within your landscape if you're looking for a shorter shrub that will attract a lot of wildlife. So again, that's a lot of information. I realize that. I just wanted to kind of get people thinking about it. We have a lot of great website resources if you want to reach out to us for any individual particular questions about any of these individual fruits or vegetables. I'm happy to provide that. I can also drop some links into the chat here in just a second. Don't forget to join us each week on Allegheny and Garrett County Master Gardener Facebook pages for our Master Gardener Minute. We also will be doing, this should be May. I forgot to update this one, but May next week, May 1st, we'll be talking about healthy plants for your garden, again, on our Facebook page, the first Thursday of each month at 11 a.m. We have lots of gardening classes still being offered at different local library branches. And then, of course, you're all joining us for this Dig In series now. This Friday or Saturday, I'm sorry, tomorrow is our garden goods give and take at the Mountain Fresh Farmers Market Pavilion, being sponsored by the Civic Club of Oakland, as well as the Master Gardener program. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. But again, I do thank you for joining us today, and we will see you at the next Dig In series.